a particular study in the US that studied the phases of retirement, and I'm just going to talk through those briefly before we get into the financial side of things, so that you can understand which phase you're in, what emotions you might be feeling, and then also what actions you can potentially take. So there's 6 phases. We'll step through each of them in turn. So the first one is the imagination stage. That kicks in around 6 to 15 years before retirement. You start imagining what retirement is going to be like for you, but it might not be a priority. You might have other things that you're focusing on, like college-age kids and aging parents. One question that's come through thick and fast is how much money you need to retire. And so I would suggest that most people who have asked that question on registration for the webinar sit in this phase of retirement, the imagination phase. Now, you might be saving towards your retirement, but you don't really know how much you need, and therefore you have a little bit of uncertainty and sense of being unprepared about retirement. So what you can start to do here, and I guess you're doing it by joining us tonight, is to start thinking about when and how you want to retire and determine how much you'll need and save systematically towards that. So that's the action point for you if you're in this phase of retirement, this imagination phase, 6 to 15 years out from retirement. The next phase is the hesitation phase. Now this is where you're getting closer to retirement. You're potentially feeling like you're not going to meet your retirement goals, your financial retirement goals. And this was particularly the case coming up to the global financial crisis, where people actually pushed out retirement, worked that little bit longer to get through that difficult financial or market period where their resources had gone down, and if they could, work that little bit longer. I guess the stress intensifies a bit, as we saw with the GFC. But generally, if you're in this hesitation phase, you're accepting that retirement's going to be, it's imminent, that you're going to actually retire pretty soon. Retirement, and I will talk about retirement, comes in many forms and shapes and sizes. It doesn't necessarily mean full-time work to full retirement, but it can be a scaling back. Retirement is a word that I think that'd be great to have another definition, but floated around the idea of rehirement. You start to do something else, but I guess take the word retirement in quotation marks. If you're in this stage, a couple of years out from retirement, seeking advice and maximising your contributions to superannuation can be very beneficial, because you're going to access that money pretty soon. The anticipation phase is just prior to retirement, so 0 to 2 years out. I guess the excitement starts to build a little bit as that retirement day draws nearer. You're probably feeling like you're on track, and most figure here, this is from the States, about half of people in this phase are working with an advisor to make sure that they are on track, maximising their situation. One thing that you can do is continue to learn about all the solutions that are available to you to provide for your retirement, all the different income streams that you can access. Now, the next phase is the realisation phase, and this is really about the retirement date, and traditionally this was fully ceasing work or fully ceasing paid work. One thing to be aware of here, as we alluded to with the conversation with Peter Murphy at the start of the session, is that sometimes this can be a really big downer. It can be a huge change, and particularly for men if they've gone from full-time work to no paid employment at all. So just set the expectations that whilst it will be fantastic and you'll have more time, sometimes the transition can be quite difficult, and I see that both with men and women, but I guess more so with men who have been, I guess a lot of their identity is associated with work. I guess there's that feeling of empowerment, but making sure that you're managing resources well throughout this period is important, because how you manage or how much you eat into your resources in these first couple of years has a massive impact over the rest of your retirement period. So important to consider that. The reorientation phase is after the first couple of years of retirement. You've worked out your routines, you've adjusted your goals, and you've happiness often has increased after you've gone through that transition. Often some of the actions that you can take to make sure that you're on track and meeting your long-term retirement needs. And the final stage is the reconciliation phase, and this is where we forward a bit too far there. And this is where, particularly in today's society where we're living so much longer, you need to potentially start to think about your long-term health requirements and the expenses there, and for your estate planning. You need to think about estate planning all the way through, but particularly at this point in time, stage 6 reconciliation. So hopefully you've been able to identify which phase you're in. I see a lot of people potentially being at the imagination phase, which is the 6 to 15 years in.